I was screaming, but no sound came out. The room felt like it was closing in on me. My hands were shaking so badly I could hardly hold him. My baby was cold. His tiny chest wasn't moving. His lips were pale. "Somebody help me!" I finally shouted. My knees gave out, and I sank to the floor, clutching him to my chest. Kings ran in from the living room. "Linda, what happened?" His voice cracked as he reached for the baby. I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I just kept rocking him, as if that would bring him back. People started crowding the doorway. Neighbors, King's cousins, and her. Grace, my mother-in-law, stood there with her arms folded. She didn't cry. She didn't rush to help. She just stared. Through my tears, I looked at her face. I didn't know it yet, but I was staring at the person who had just taken my child away from me. It hadn't always been like this. When Kings and I got married, I thought I had found my forever. He was caring, gentle, and always made me laugh. We wanted children right away, but month after month, nothing happened. 1 year passed, then 2, then 3. The whispers started at family events. She looks fine. Maybe she can't have children. Kings should think of taking another wife. Grace was the loudest in her disapproval. She never said much to Kings directly. She saved her words for me. "You've been here for 3 years, Linda," she said one afternoon when she came to visit. "What are you doing as a wife? A woman is measured by the children she brings into the world. Do you want to waste my son's time?" I forced a small smile. "We're trying, Ma," she scoffed. "Trying? How long does trying take? Do you expect him to grow old waiting for you?" She looked around the house like she was inspecting it for faults. "Even the food you cook has no life in it. Maybe that's why nothing is growing in you." When she left, I locked myself in the bedroom and cried quietly. I didn't tell Kings everything she said. He already had enough stress from work, and deep down, I feared she might be right. Grace's visits became a routine I dreaded. At first, she used to come once in 2 months. Then it became once a month. Soon it was every weekend. She never called ahead. She would just show up, push the door open, and walk in as if she still lived there. Sometimes she would find Kings at home and act sweet, asking if he had eaten, telling him he worked too hard. But when Kings stepped outside, her whole face would change. "You are just sitting here wasting your time, Linda," she said one Saturday morning while Kings was fixing something outside. "Do you think marriage is only about cooking and cleaning? You should have a baby in your arms by now." I tried to keep my voice calm. "We're seeing a doctor, Ma. These things take time." She scoffed and looked at me like I was a foolish child. "Doctor, what do doctors know about God's blessings? In my day, we didn't need all these hospital things. A real woman knew how to keep her husband's bloodline alive." I swallowed my anger. "We're doing everything we can." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you? Or are you secretly taking something to stop it?" That one cut deep. I blinked fast, not wanting her to see my tears. "Why would I do that?" "Because some women like their peace too much," she said, folding her arms. "But let me warn you, Linda, my son is the only son I have. If you cannot give him a child, I will find someone who can." That night, when Kings came to bed, I almost told him everything. But he was tired, and I didn't want to start another fight between him and his mother. So I stayed quiet. The pressure wasn't only from her words. Grace started bringing things to the house. Fertility herbs, strange-looking teas, and bottles with no labels. "This is from a trusted woman in the village," she would say, forcing the bitter drink into my hands. "She has helped many women like you." I would sip a little and pour the rest down the sink when she wasn't looking. I didn't trust anything that came from her. Kings noticed my mood changing. One evening, he sat beside me on the couch. "Babe, what's wrong? You've been quiet these days." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." He held my hand. "I know Mom can be intense, but she means well. She just wants us to be happy." I looked at him, wishing he could see it. "Kings, sometimes it doesn't feel like she wants us to be happy. It feels like she wants you to be happy, even if it makes me miserable." He sighed and kissed my forehead. "Please, just be patient with her. She's old-fashioned. She'll come around." But she didn't come around. She got worse. By the 4th year of our marriage, I had stopped going to family gatherings. Every time we showed up without a child, the stares and whispers followed me everywhere. I could feel the unspoken judgment in the way women clutched their children when they passed me, like I was cursed. Grace didn't hide her irritation anymore. She would ask Kings in front of me, "So, any news yet? Or are we still just the two of you?" And if King stayed silent, she would turn to me. "You know, a man without children is like a tree without fruit. It doesn't matter how tall it grows, people only remember if it bore fruit." I learned to keep my face still, but inside, her words were tearing me apart. It happened when I had stopped expecting it. I woke up one morning feeling different. My body was heavy, my stomach uneasy. At first, I thought it was stress, but then the days passed and my monthly cycle didn't come. I took a test. Positive. I just stood there in the bathroom, holding the little stick, unable to move. My hands were shaking. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. After all the years, all the tears, all the prayers, it had finally happened. When Kings came home that evening, I couldn't keep it in. "Kings," I whispered, holding the test out to him. He looked at it, then looked at me. His eyes widened. "Is this?" I nodded. He let out a loud laugh and pulled me into his arms, lifting me off the floor. "Oh my God, Linda, we're going to have a baby!" We stayed like that for a long time, both of us crying and laughing at the same time. The news spread fast. We didn't even have to tell Grace ourselves. Somehow she found out within 2 days. She showed up at our house with bags of food, fruits, and more of her special teas. For the first time in years, she smiled at me warmly. "See? I told you it would happen if you prayed hard enough. God has remembered you, my daughter." I didn't miss the "my daughter" part. She hadn't called me that in years. Suddenly, she wanted to be involved in everything: my diet, my doctor visits, even the color of the baby's clothes. She said it was all to protect the child. At first, I didn't mind. I was so happy to be pregnant that I let her fuss over me. But soon, her visits became daily. If I didn't pick up the phone when she called, she would show up at the door, demanding to know why. One afternoon, she found me lying on the couch. "You shouldn't be lazy," she said, moving to open the curtains. "Pregnancy is not sickness. A woman should be strong." I sat up slowly. "Ma, I'm just resting. The doctor said I should—" "Doctors," she cut in with a wave of her hand, always telling women to rest. In my time, we carried firewood until the day we gave birth. I bit my tongue. I didn't want to fight. Kings was over the moon. He started leaving work earlier to spend time with me. We would talk about baby names, what the nursery would look like, even which school the baby might attend someday. Grace noticed. One evening, when Kings went out to buy groceries, she turned to me. "Enjoy this attention while it lasts. Once the baby comes, things will change." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, pretending it was nothing. "A man's attention is like the sun. It rises and sets. Don't think you own it forever." Something about the way she said it made me uneasy. Months passed, and my belly grew. The pregnancy wasn't easy. There were days I was too tired to move, and nights when I couldn't sleep. But every kick from the baby reminded me that this was worth it. The day I gave birth was the happiest day of my life. A healthy baby boy, crying loudly as they placed him in my arms. Kings was right there, holding my hand and kissing my forehead. Grace cried too, telling everyone who would listen that she was now a grandmother. She held the baby like he was her own, rocking him gently, humming songs I had never heard before. For a while, it felt like peace had returned. Kings was attentive. The house was full of laughter, and Grace, well, she seemed softer. But slowly things began to change. Kings was spending even more time at home with me and the baby. He didn't answer his mother's calls as quickly as before. Sometimes he forgot to tell her he wasn't coming over. I noticed the way she looked at me when Kings held the baby close, his eyes full of love. It was the same look she used to give me when she thought I wasn't enough for him. Sharp, measuring, almost resentful. One day, as I fed the baby, she said casually, "You should let me keep him for a few nights. You need your rest." I smiled politely. "Thank you, Ma, but I'm fine. I want to be with him." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You think you can do it all yourself. Don't forget, I raised Kings. I know how to take care of boys." I didn't answer, but in my heart, I felt the first shadow of fear. The day we brought our son home, the whole neighborhood seemed to know. It was like a festival outside our gate. Women with trays of food, children peeking in to see the baby, men shaking Kings's hand like he had just won a great prize. I didn't mind the noise. After years of waiting, I wanted the world to see our joy. Grace arrived dressed in a bright gold wrapper and a matching head tie. She looked like she was attending a wedding. The moment she stepped into the house, she went straight for the baby. "My grandson," she said, lifting him carefully. "The one I prayed for." She didn't even look at me. Kings smiled, holding me by the shoulders. "Mom, meet your new daughter again, the woman who made you a grandmother." Grace gave me a quick glance, then kissed the baby's forehead. "Yes, yes, God is faithful." I told myself not to read too much into it. Maybe she was just overwhelmed. The celebration went on for days. Every morning, more people came to greet us, bringing gifts, diapers, baby clothes, baskets of fruits. Grace took charge of receiving them all. She sat in the living room like a queen, telling visitors how the baby had her nose, her smile, her skin. When one of Kings's cousins said, "He looks like Linda," Grace laughed lightly. "Ah, babies change. You'll see in a few months he will look exactly like his father's side." I sat quietly, rocking my son, pretending not to notice. On the third night, after most visitors had gone, I was breastfeeding the baby in the bedroom when Kings came in. He knelt beside me and kissed my cheek. "You're amazing, Linda. I still can't believe you went through all that pain and still smile like this." I smiled faintly. It was worth it, every second. He reached out and touched our son's tiny hand. "I'm going to give you both the best life I can. You'll never want for anything." I don't know why, but in that moment, I felt the weight of his promise. And I also felt the shadow of something I couldn't name. Grace stayed with us for almost a week after the birth. She would take the baby from my arms just for a while and hold him for hours. Sometimes she would hum softly, other times she would whisper words I couldn't hear. Once I walked into the kitchen and found her talking to the baby. "You're mine," she was saying quietly. "You belong to me, my little prince." She didn't hear me come in. When she turned and saw me, she smiled. I was just telling him how blessed he is to have me as his grandmother. I forced a smile, but something in her voice stayed with me. It started slowly. At first, I thought it was just in my head. The way she looked at me when Kings held the baby. The way her smile faded when Kings ignored her calls because he was too busy playing with our son. Before the baby, Kings used to visit her almost every other day, running errands, fixing things around her house, or just sitting with her to talk. Now, his free time was spent with us. I didn't have to ask. I could see she felt the difference. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after we brought the baby home, Grace came over while Kings was at work. She didn't knock. She never did. She sat down in the living room, looked at me, then at the baby in my arms. "You know, Linda, you must not let this child take all of Kings's attention. A man needs balance. If you hold him too tightly, you will push him away." I frowned. "We're just happy to finally have him here. Kings loves being with him." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Yes, but don't make the mistake of thinking a man will always choose his wife and child over his mother. Blood is blood." The way she said it made me uneasy. After that day, she began making more suggestions. "You should let me keep him sometimes, Linda. You're always with him. You'll make him too attached to you." "Linda, you need your strength. Let me take care of him overnight. I'm his grandmother. Don't you trust me?" I always found a polite way to say no. My instincts told me never to leave him alone with her for too long. But Kings didn't see it. One evening, after she had left, he said, "Babe, I think you're being too protective. Mom raised me just fine. Let her help." I put the baby in his crib and turned to him. "Kings, I'm his mother. I'm supposed to be protective." He sighed. "I know, but Mom loves him too. She just wants to bond with him." I didn't argue, but deep down I knew what I had seen in her eyes wasn't just love. It was something sharper, something darker. The first real sign that something had shifted came during Kings's birthday. We decided to have a small dinner at home, just us, the baby, and a few close friends. When Kings blew out the candles, I leaned over and kissed him. The baby was asleep in his crib, so for a moment it was just the two of us. Grace was watching from the other side of the room. Her face was stiff, her eyes cold. Later, when Kings went outside to see a friend off, she came to me. "You're enjoying this attention, aren't you?" she said softly. I blinked. What do you mean? She gave a short, humorless laugh. Don't act innocent. Before this child, Kings's world was his mother. Now you've taken him away. But remember, Linda, life has a way of balancing itself. Her words chilled me. From then on, she didn't hide her irritation. If Kings carried the baby and didn't hand him to her quickly enough, she would make comments. If you keep holding him like that, he won't learn to love anyone else. If I tried to feed him while she was visiting, she would say, "You're feeding him too much. His stomach will get weak." Sometimes when Kings wasn't looking, she would glare at me, long, cold stares that said more than words ever could. One evening, Kings came home later than usual. I was in the nursery, rocking the baby to sleep. He came in quietly, kissed the baby's forehead, and sat beside me. "Mom says she feels like we're shutting her out," he said carefully. I looked at him. "Kings, we're not shutting her out. She's here almost every other day. I don't think she likes how much time you spend with us now." He smiled faintly. "She's just jealous of the baby. She'll get over it." But the thing about jealousy is, it doesn't just go away. It grows, slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor, and I could feel it moving closer to us every day. The change in Grace's behavior became impossible to ignore. It wasn't just the words anymore. It was her eyes, the way she would watch me when Kings wasn't looking. One afternoon, she came over while Kings was at work. I was in the kitchen making lunch, and she was in the living room with the baby. I could hear her humming to him at first, but then her voice got low, almost a whisper. When I stepped into the room, she stopped immediately and looked at me with a small smile. "I was just telling him," she said, "that his grandmother loves him very much, and that no matter what, he will always be mine." Her words sounded harmless, but something about the way she said "always mine" made my skin prickle. There were other moments, too. Once, while I was changing the baby's clothes, she said, "Linda, you should be careful. Life can take things away just as easily as it gives them." She said it with a smile, like she was giving friendly advice, but her eyes didn't match the smile. Another time, she told me, "When a woman becomes a mother, she should not forget the people who came before her. If you make them feel left out, they may not bless the child's path." I didn't answer her that day. I just kept folding the baby's clothes, but my mind was racing. Even Kings began to notice my unease. One night, after we had put the baby to bed, he asked, "Linda, is something going on between you and Mom? You've been tense around her." I wanted to tell him everything, every strange look, every unsettling comment, but I knew how it would sound. He loved his mother, and I was afraid he would think I was being paranoid. So I said, "I just think she's a little too involved. I want space to be his mother without someone watching every move." King sighed. "She's just excited. After all these years, we finally have a baby. You know how much this means to her." I nodded, but deep down I felt something heavy. Excitement didn't look like this. Excitement didn't feel this cold. I started avoiding being alone with her. If she came over when Kings wasn't home, I would stay in the same room, never letting her take the baby away. It wasn't easy. She noticed, and she didn't like it. "Do you think I'm going to harm my own grandson?" she asked one afternoon, her voice sharp. I forced a laugh. "Of course not. I just like having him close to me." She leaned back and looked at me for a long moment. A mother who doesn't trust her child's grandmother is a mother who doesn't understand family." I didn't respond. One evening, Kings told me Grace had called to ask if she could take the baby for a weekend at her place. I almost shouted no, but I kept my voice calm. "I'm not ready to be away from him." "She said she wants to give you a break," Kings said. "I don't need a break," I answered quickly. He looked at me, puzzled. "Linda, I don't get why you're so against it." I met his eyes. "Because I'm his mother, and I feel something is not right. Please, Kings, trust me on this." He didn't argue, but I could tell he thought I was being overprotective. The last time she came before that day, she stayed later than usual. Kings was working late, and I was in the bedroom breastfeeding the baby. She came in without knocking, stood by the door, and watched us for a while. Then she said softly, "Do you know what the problem with being the only woman in a man's life is?" I looked up at her, confused. She smiled thinly. "When another one comes, the first one is forgotten." She turned and left the room before I could reply. I sat there, my heart pounding, her words echoing in my head. It was a hot afternoon. Kings had gone to fix something at a friend's shop, and I was home with the baby. Grace arrived without warning, as usual. She was in a cheerful mood that day, or at least she pretended to be. "Linda, you look tired," she said. "Let me hold him while you rest." I hesitated. He just fell asleep. "All the more reason to let him stay in my arms," she said quickly, already reaching for him. I didn't want to argue. Part of me thought maybe I was being unfair, maybe I was imagining things, so I let her take him, but I stayed in the living room with them. After a while, I went to the kitchen to boil some water for tea. I could still hear her humming to him. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes before I came back. When I walked into the living room, my heart stopped. Grace was standing by the open window, her back to me, holding the baby in a strange way, not cradled, but upright, his head pressed against her shoulder. His little arm dangled limply. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharp. She turned slowly, smiling faintly. "He's fine, just sleeping." Something in me panicked. I rushed forward and took him from her. The moment I held him, I knew. He was cold. Too cold. His tiny chest wasn't moving. His lips were pale, his eyes half open. No, 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 no. My voice was shaking as I tried to wake him. "Wake up, baby! Wake up!" Grace just stood there, watching me. I screamed for help. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor, clutching him, rocking him like maybe that would bring him back. Kings came rushing in minutes later, his face pale. "Linda! What happened?" I couldn't answer. I could barely breathe. Behind him, Grace stood in the doorway, her face calm, her arms folded. She didn't cry. She didn't move. I looked at her through my tears, and something inside me knew, even before the truth came out, that she had taken my baby from me. The house was chaos after that. Kings was on the phone calling for help, shouting for the neighbors. Someone tried CPR. Another ran for a nurse who lived down the street. But I already knew. My arms told me the truth long before anyone said it. My baby was gone. We rushed him to the hospital, but the doctor only shook his head after checking. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. The words sank into my bones like ice. I sat there on the hospital bench, rocking back and forth, my hands empty now because they had taken him from me. Kings was pacing, running his hands through his hair. Grace sat across from me, her face dry. Not one tear. At first, everyone assumed it was sudden infant death. "These things happen," the nurse said, her voice gentle. "Sometimes babies just stop breathing." But it didn't make sense to me. My baby had been fine that morning, smiling, feeding well, warm in my arms. Then I left him with her for just a few minutes. The picture kept replaying in my head, the way his arm had dangled when she held him, the strange calm on her face when I panicked. That night, Kings and I sat in silence in our bedroom. He finally said, "Linda, what are you thinking?" I hesitated. My throat was dry. I think your mother knows something." He turned sharply. "What are you talking about?" "I'm saying, when I came back from the kitchen, something was wrong. The way she was holding him. Kings, I can't explain it, but I know she had something to do with this." His face hardened. "Linda, that's my mother. She would never." "Would she?" I said, my voice trembling. "Do you remember the things she said about losing your attention? About life taking things away?" "Kings, I'm telling you, I saw it in her eyes." He shook his head, standing up. "You're grieving. You're not thinking straight." I didn't argue. I just lay there, staring at the wall, because deep down I knew, and whether he believed me or not, the truth would come out. It didn't take long. 2 days later, Kings left the house early. I didn't know where he went until he came back in the afternoon, his face pale and his hands shaking. He sat on the edge of the bed. I went to see Mom. I stayed quiet, my heart pounding. She told me she was sorry," he whispered. "She said she didn't mean to hurt him, but she couldn't stand watching me give all my attention to you and the baby. She said she felt like I had abandoned her." My body went cold. "So she admitted it?" He nodded, tears filling his eyes. "She said she just wanted to scare you. She didn't think it would. She said she thought if she took him for a few minutes and made you panic, you'd back off and let her be more involved. But something happened and..." His voice broke. I put my hand over my mouth. I couldn't breathe. "It wasn't an accident. It wasn't some twist of fate. My son had been taken from me because of jealousy." The days after that felt like walking through fire. King's was broken. He barely spoke, barely ate. I could see the war in his eyes, the pull between his love for me, his grief for our baby, and the bond with the woman who raised him. For me, there was no war. There was only rage, grief, and a deep emptiness I knew would never leave. People came to the house to offer condolences, but I couldn't bear to hear them. God knows best. He's in a better place. None of it made sense. None of it helped. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, tiny and perfect, with those little fingers curling around mine. Then I saw him again, cold and still in my arms. And then I saw her face, calm and unmoving while my world fell apart. Kings didn't want to involve the police. "She's old, Linda, and she's my mother," he said, his voice heavy. "She's a murderer," I said flatly. He winced. "She didn't plan to." "She took him from me," I cut in, my voice shaking. "She took him because she was jealous. If it were anyone else, you'd want justice. But because it's her, you want to protect her." He dropped his head into his hands. "I don't know what to do." At night, I would lie awake, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge in the kitchen, the distant sound of cars on the road. Kings would be beside me, but it felt like we were in different worlds. I started packing the baby's things into a box, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't bear to see them. Each piece felt like another wound. The tiny socks, the blanket he loved, the little hat he wore home from the hospital. When I got to his crib, I froze. My hand rested on the wooden rail, and for a moment, I thought I could hear him breathing. I closed my eyes and let the illusion wash over me. But when I opened them, the crib was empty. Grace didn't come around after that. Kings told her to stay away for now, but I knew it was more than that. He couldn't face her. Still, I thought about her every day. I thought about how she had smiled at me the day I brought the baby home, how she had held him, how she had whispered to him when she thought I wasn't listening. And I thought about her last words before the tragedy. When another one comes, the first one is forgotten. Maybe in her mind, she wasn't killing a baby. Maybe she was killing the thing she thought had stolen her son. Weeks later, I stood in the backyard one evening, watching the sun go down. Kings came out quietly and stood beside me. He took my hand. "I don't expect you to forgive her," he said softly. "I can't even forgive her myself. But I need you to know, I love you. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I nodded, but my eyes stayed on the horizon. "Some things can't be fixed, Kings. We can learn to live with them, but they never go away." He didn't answer. We stood there until the sun disappeared, the air heavy with the weight of everything we had lost. Sometimes I wonder if justice would have healed me, or if it would have just added another scar. Sometimes I imagine what my son would look like now, smiling, crawling, maybe calling me Mama for the first time. And sometimes I think about Grace, sitting alone in her house, probably telling herself she didn't mean for it to happen. But then I remember the way she stood in my living room that day, calm while I screamed for help. And I know in my bones that she meant every second of it. Because love and hate can look almost the same, but only one of them kills.